I don't know what happened there. I think I'm talking too loud and the vibration of the phone just went. So the recording stopped. So this is part two to The Lost People. So Massimo Bruto was talking about, he's talking about preserving the traditions and the culture and all of like the recipes. He said he's been brought up on these recipes, and his grandmother's grandmother used to cook them, and their grandmothers cooked them, because the mother is like, like Italy is just par excellence, isn't it? They had the Renaissance. They've had, so many geniuses have come from Italy, and that's one of the places that those Tel Aviv people want to destroy the most. So therefore, we should be looking to preserve that the most. There must be something there about the keys of why we are the way we are, like from Italy, because Italy is like, it's in the Mediterranean as like a vast peninsula of Europe, who we belong to. So like, it shouldn't be isolated or uh, removed from holding many of the cultural values that we should hold to our Europeanness, our Aryanness, our nobleness. That's basically what it is. It's nobleness that's ran through our blood through 10 gazillion years, whatever. We haven't even found out the origin. So therefore, if we can't locate the origin in this day and age, therefore we must be, as Julius Streicher said, infinite. We must be infinite. This is what the concept's about God, isn't it? God is all infinite, infinite. Like, that's beyond our comprehension. So wherever you go with your materialist argument, it's like, oh, so you just get off the bus, do you? And then there's the universe. Okay, well, what's after the bus stop that you got off on to view the universe? There's no limit to where we are. There's always more. Blasts my head. It has done since I was a young kid, like, which I still fairly am. I was reading a book. It's translated from the French, and it's about like Chinese horoscopes, which is about as Chinese as I am. It's not Chinese at all. And it was hilarious. Like I'm born late, so I have a lot of the characteristics, because I'm on the cusp. I have a lot of the characteristics of when I should have been born, but because I was born later, I have some of the characteristics of when I was born. And then this tiger one, this is my companion, because I was born at the time of the tiger. But as it happens, I was born at 5 o'clock, which is another cusp. So let me give you a background of why this is important. So it was after sort of halfway through the theory of celestial influence, and I was thinking astronomy, astrology, cosmology. Well, what's cosmology? So I looked up cosmology, and cosmology is boss like like there's infinite cosmoses everywhere. Anything can be a cosmos. It was really great, and I used to love Franz Beckenbauer, the former captain of the West German and Bayern Munich. I think he's manager at Bayern Munich, or he owns Bayern Munich now. Like, I was only dead proper young, and they were playing Czechoslovakia, and I was like, oh, I support Germany because I like Franz Beckenbauer. So yeah, I don't know if he's a tiger or what, but it's just where was I going with that? Oh, the Cosmos. He played for New York Cosmos after he retired from European football, and I used to like football. Like, look up cosmology. It's really interesting, and it's not something that hasn't been well studied. It has been well studied by the likes of Galileo, and is it Copernicus, and like Anaxagoras, and all these people, like, going way way back into the mists of like the like thousands of years ago. They've like studied this to a fine art, and it's only like when Isaac Newton come along, like he sort of he gave it rebirth, if you like. It's proper interesting, and it's not interesting for something that is not practical. It's literally practical. It gives you the keys to understanding yourself, which is why I'm promoting the book, The Use of the Self, which is out of copyright and it's all free online and stuff. I mean, it's not the sole purpose of the video, obviously, but it's one of the hopefully many things that I'm bringing to the fore, shall we say. So, I'm reading this book and it was saying that I've got like in a dialogue. This is like part of one of the things that I belong to, one of the animal characteristics, the inner dialogue. And if you read it, you'll find out which one that I'm born into the cusp of from being late. The inner dialogue of a young child and a wise old man. But the young child keeps throwing ice cream at the old man, and the old man keeps like chastising the child. And that's apparently part of my inner dialogue. The other one, the cusp that I'm born from, is the earlier one and not the later one. And that's known as the cloud. And it's proper me, like I couldn't stop laughing when I worked it all out. But I'm basically like, my companions are the tiger, which hasn't really come to the fore more so. It was weird because like the tiger, the cusp that I'm born on with the tiger is also the rabbit. And the rabbit is known to have fights that other people like. It's known to have fights that you wouldn't expect it to have fights, and it won't have the fights that you would expect it to have. And that's my life. I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe that. 12 years now I've been sort of fighting this fight. What it's my struggle fight. That one. Yeah, there are answers there. I mean, I'm very studious, so I look at things now. I look like, how does this place into where I am? Because I was brought up in civil engineering and used to work on big, huge. I've worked on multi-billion-pound contract jobs, like building airports, universities, schools, hospitals, houses, you name it, garden walls, porches, all sorts, all manner of things, as most people in construction do. And, when did you, I think Steve Rotherham, now the regional mayor of Merseyside, he was an ex-bricklayer, but, I don't think he's done that for a good few years. Winston Churchill apparently used to do a bit of bricklaying in the garden, and he'd say that was his meditation. But we're way beyond Churchill's years. I mean, look at the Great Wall of China. Look at the pyramids. These are things of the builders. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Feats of engineering are generally the feats of the ancient world. The Babylon. What was it? The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The Great Pyramid of Giza, and in today's world, everything's basically around construction and design. So you haven't got so much like outside of Europeanness. There doesn't tend to be much in the way of what they call wonders of the world. So it like that's how I approach my life when I'm approaching things that I'm looking to learn, and that's where I take my pride, is that I'm looking to learn more about who I am, how things relate to me, and how I can obviously benefit, get advantage, but also like how can the next person, so I can share it, how can the next person benefit from something I've got to share. I'm not trying to like ram anything down anyone's throat or bosh someone over the head with my doctrines or ideologies or this, that, and the other. I'm just putting it out there that I benefit or have seem to be benefiting greatly from taking the position of being a learner. And it's something I'd like to pass on, like how, like my paradigm to approach how I'm living, could be of use for you to ponder these things, poetry, art, paintings, design, dimensional theory, tarot cards, I Ching, which is where I was going with the Chinese astronomy, which is about as Chinese as I am, which I'm obviously not. So, yeah, Carl Jung done a great study on oracles, and I Ching was the one that he concentrated on the most. He looked at tarot and he looked at other divining methods because they're all part of divination. And isn't that a weird word to use? Because all divination is divine, surely. Or am I missing the point? So if it's divine and it's to help build your intuition, therefore your intuition and divine must be intertwined. Somehow there must be a divine correlation between what your intuition inspires. I only read most of Jung. I haven't read it all, so if I'm missing the point, there's a comment section down below. Feel free to add your comment and we'll debate this issue, like the 2 people who are watching, or 4 people when YouTube gets the numbers wrong. So this I Ching is really interesting. In fact, all of the sort of tarot, and I found tarot to be like very interesting. Like, it's known as sorcery, isn't it? In the realms of magic, it's called sorcery. So the oracles are, they would be specific people who would be wise, and there are people who are born wise, like the dragons, or their companion can be a dragon. It's properly interesting. It's like cosmologically, the way astronomy or astrology works is like from this book, Celestial Influence, the theory of celestial influence, is that there are magnetic poles coming from, like, the 13, 9, whatever the planets are, including the sun, because like our solar system is revolving around another massive one, and there are other solar systems. So like our circulation of the solar system is representative of an atom, in so much as that the distances correlate, like between the nucleus and this, that, and the other. They correlate to the inner planets, the ones we can see from Earth, like that's the ones in the atoms. It's proper mad, it is. So what it says is like these magnetic poles have bearings on our magnetic, gravity. We have gravity, don't we? Or are we denying that now? that'll be the other fellas next door morning. Yeah, there is no gravity. You're all living in an illusion. So we're gonna have to charge you illusion tax. Oh God, the sooner they're removed from power, the better. Because they obviously are all in power. Epstein, Janet, Johnson. Isn't Biden's missus and his children are married to them, and he's just like, what is it? Appointed like 10 of them into the US government or whatever. It's like, you show me a problem and I'll show you one of them or more, like within seconds, because they're just wrapped up in everything. Anyway, back to this theory of celestial influence. So Mercury obviously has the tiniest pull, and that correlates to an ancient Greek archetype, would you believe? The god of Mercury, which was archetypal in the sense that it represented the young lad, you know, a bit of a thief, bit of a wayfarer, bit of a, you know, bit of a lad, whatever. Yeah. So so that's Mercury, and then they're going to develop, which comes into adolescence, into like the more loving child, having romances, you know, which like teenage years, 20s, 30s, getting into you know, marriage and having children in the real, you know, in a normal world. So so that would be Venus, would you believe? So then there's war, then that like the Mars. These are the influences then like on your age as you grow and older. The Martian influence. So that's when you'd be getting involved in like wars, you know, getting into late 20s, 30s, whatever. Unless you're in Vietnam, where, what was it, the average age was 19. You know, that wasn't a cull, was it? So then we've got Earth, so you grounds in yourself, and then they're like your types of man. So, you know, your mercurial man is like your type 1, whatever. Just get a pillow for my knees here. I'm trying to give a good backdrop of my tiger. My companion. So, yeah, then you get into the outer ones like Jupiter, Saturn. Like Jupiter was seen as all wise, you know, that's like one of the, what is he? You know, Pluto, is it? Not Pluto. Whoever the, Zeus. Saturn, I don't know who Saturn is supposed to be. But yeah, and then when you get out to like Neptune and Pluto and Uranus, then they're like, you know, your granddads and that, when they understand the world from these different, you know, from like you've got the little baby, little mercurial baby running around being the little thief, you know, robbing biscuits and all like that. And the granddad is like, seen all that, he's seen all everything. So like politically, geriarchy would be when the older people run the place, and that would be based in like a you know, conventional system of elders. I think I hear Max Egan mention if we had councils of elders, well, that's called geriarchy, and that's very interesting. Like, which leads me to think of one of the things that I found about, you know, the suffragette movement and everything, and they're saying, oh, the women got the vote. Guess what? The men got the vote as well. Because people didn't have votes individually, it was family households. And the family came under the man, and, you know, the man's name, the man's property and interests. The woman still held hers and could have business and everything. We've been sold a flunky on that one, like. But in the actual act, which gives women the vote, that's in section 8. In section 1, it gives men the vote. I bet you've never heard of that one, unless you're someone who knows me well. Because I stumble upon these things. I read legislation.gov, like you would read the daily newspaper. So there's always stuff in there, you know, like Tony Blair drafted 6,000 laws in the years that he was in. Your man there, Joe Biden, is bringing in executive order after executive order after executive order, which I've put on the blog. And if you're not following the blog, that's Peter Cooney, enabler.wordpress.com. You can get over there. Peter Cooney, COONEY, enabler, ENABLER.wordpress.com. And I might make one on the GeoCities. I'm just thinking about it, calling it Noble National Socialism. Because when I first came into this, and this is really the point of the video that I wanted to get across, because these are the keys where people, you know, all these people who are lost. We didn't have mental institutions or asylums or nothing in our countries, in our continent, until we did. And one of the first people who went into the asylums was Jack the Ripper, and he was none other than one of them. Oren Kosminski, you know, one of the Tel Aviv crew, like, he's an Epsteinite. So we should call him, isn't it? Epsteinites, because everyone knows what, like the Beatles manager, homosexual, killed himself, Tel Avivite, and an Epstein. Same with Bill Gates. Bill Gates' mum's a Maxwell. You know, the Illuminati, the bloodlines. Yeah, Maxwell, Epstein, Weinstein. Like someone was saying there on one of the videos. I think he was getting interviewed by the TV, and he said, you know, we seem to have a Presbyterian problem. And he said, well, with names like Weinstein and Epstein, I don't think it's a Presbyterian problem. Well, I'd say it is a Presbyterian problem, because you should be getting two arms and you should be dragging them down to the nearest tree or lamppost. You know, you shouldn't be letting these people get away with what they're getting away with, which is obviously the M word, isn't it? Not allowed to say the M word, are we, when it comes to them? So, yeah, the National Socialist idea of the fact that things can run well. It's like it's a basic, what would you call it? A basic tenet of common sense. Like, if my body didn't know how to function naturally, it would just expand into the universe, turn into dust, and recycle, because the universe knows how to exist and through its own consciousness. So there's an obvious gimmick, skit, whatever, going on to stop the nature of things. Now, if they're saying that there isn't, I'm saying that there is, because I've worked, you know, I'm not living how I choose to live, and the thing that holds me back is the things that is being ran by the Tel Avivites, you know, Boris Johnson, the Epsteins, the Trumps, the Biden crew, your man there in China, what's his name, Xi, Mr. Xi. It's kind of the world we're heading for, isn't it, Mr. Xi? So he works for Tel Aviv. You know, he's one of Kissinger's little monkey boys, like Putin, Merkel, Macron. Who's the all of them? All of them are. You know, he's been the one who I've identified the most as being the most active. You know, obviously he's got mates, but he was having it with Princess Diana, if you'd ever look that up. So, I mean, speculative, but the thing is, he was hanging round, you know, he was sniffing round her, and she was having it, like, so what are the chances? You know, he's one of them, isn't he? And that's, so was she, I think. I think she's half one. When's someone going to make them glasses? But like, you'd have to make them that they work on the TVs and the internet and that, wouldn't you? You know, like, they get away with it, wouldn't it? They'd stay out of the way. But if you couldn't see with the glasses, that'd be like, you know, in the film when they improve the glasses, don't they? They're the ones he's found. Well, you know, that'd be the improvement, that you then could see them on the TV and be like, oh my God, it's all of them. And this is a thing, like, it's they're super busy, like, you know, no doubt about that. All this COVID thing is a convenience to them. This isn't something some woman was eating a bat. What did she do? Sneeze on a bat. They gave us this spiel. I was in Beijing during the SARS, and they gave us the spiel that a chef had sneezed on a chicken, and that started the SARS. But China ended the SARS in 2 weeks. Now, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that currently the Chinese money, the yuan, the RMB, the people's money, so-called people's money, right? They were trying to get into the WTO, and they were allowed in as an observer state, and then SARS came along. Now, there's the pushing for the UN to be the what did they call it? The reserve basket currency at the IMF, which is basically what the world money then will be ran on. You know, the way it was like gold at one time, gold and silver, like by metal, by metallic currency. You know, with the weights and measures. This is all getting into like how governments, what governments are supposed to be looking into. You know, like you've got a bag of corn. So a bag of corn in 1860 or 1200 is worth a bag of corn. A bag of corn is always going to be worth a bag of corn. You know, because the bags were always set to a specific size, which gave it a specific weight, because the corn is always going to weigh the same because it's made of the same material. So weights and measures is a big thing when it comes to like in land, it's called metes and bounds. You know, they're your boundaries, and the meter is the meets. You know, where the things meet at the boundaries. That's like there's your measures, your weights and measures. So that's land, metes and bounds, and then weights and measures is like money as it relates to product. So whereas like, you know, a bag of corn may be represented by, you know, a dozen eggs and a couple of pints of milk or whatever, that value doesn't change. But whereas in 1290 or whatever, it was worth a penny, in 1860 it'd be worth a penny. Now it's worth 750 quid or whatever daft label matches whatever they want to put on it, but it's still worth the eggs and the milk at the same value. Like nothing changes in the weights and measures. Got to be uproar then, because that doesn't come under the fiscal year. That comes under the correct year. The fiscal year is the financial year, isn't it? Where they do all the magic tricks. You know, if you ever look into the fiscal year, annual fiscal, something like it starts a year after Easter, a week after Easter or something like that. So it's understandable that there is a fiscal year when you're doing an inventory and an accountant, you know, an auditing of anything. But who's auditing the Tel Aviv lot? Some of the things that I get up to are funny. But I was sitting there one day, you can do this yourself. MI5 are on Companies House, you know, like their returns, and CIA, they have their returns, because this is all public information. You know, they're funded by tax money, they're funded by the public purse. So the public has the right then to look at the books. You know, what have they spent, what have they been involved in, what have they got charges or this, that and the other. And yeah, Mossad are the only ones that I couldn't find, at least outside of the communist countries. You know, kind of like as you do. So I emailed them and they never wrote back. Oh, did I crew that lot? Anyway, yeah, the National Socialism. So basically, like, I was watching Helen Mirren, and she was in a kibbutz in Israel. It's in this like this masterclass of acting or whatever. So she's in a kibbutz in Israel, and she's dead pro-Jew, like they're pro-Israeli, they're pro-Jew, they're pro like not a bit anti anything of any, you know, got nothing to say about that. It's like, whoa, like you'd have a criticism about something, don't you? You know, but no, these people have no criticisms of any sort whatsoever when it comes to like these. Not so much the Jews themselves. They'll fly into criticisms of Judaism because they're unified, aren't they? It doesn't matter. They're always going to be sticking to their group first, so they can say what they want, because everyone knows it'll just wash off like a water off a duck's back. Yeah. But Ellen Mirren isn't one, And she's like, oh, you know, and it's like, oh my God, turn it in. So she was on a kibbutz. So these kibbutzes, basically, the idea of the kibbutz is that when, when like the Ottoman Empire fell, didn't it? So then you had the Palestinian, the British Palestinian Mandate. So the British were in control of it. Then after World War Two, they moved the millions of Jews that were left in Europe. That, you know, what was it? I can't remember the exact figure. I think it was about 4 million. They all went then to Israel. Well, what became Israel, but they had to do certain things. Like there was loads of terrorist activity, Arab and Jewish uh, terrorist activity. We're told, but the giveaway is that Palestinians aren't Arabs. Palestinians are all Europeans, or what was the remnants of the European people who were there. They're all Christians. They're not Arabs. Arabs would be like Syria. They're an Arab nation. Read the constitution. It says they are an Arab nation, like Jordan. I think Jordan's a mixed, actually. What the other ones? Egypt. You know, what's the other one that surrounds it there? Like UAE, Saudi. They're all Arabs. You know what I mean? So I was looking into seeing this video, and obviously my channel's called National Socialist, which when people work it out, they never see them again. Anyway, it was this fella, and a mate said to me, "Oh, he's a Jew." Him. So I didn't know he was like had American accent. You know, didn't necessarily come across as a Jew. Red hair, just like some dude. I was just watching it. And what he was saying is that there's a UN concern. I think it's called UNHR or something like that. UNCHR. I can't remember the thing. But anyway, if you typed in like Palestinians UNHR or something like that, I'll try and dig the link up and put it in anyway. All Palestinians are classed as refugees. I don't get that. I don't get how all Palestinians can be classed as refugees. How does that work? How, you know, we're sold this dream, aren't we? We're sold this dream. I'm just going to sit down. We're sold this dream that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And yeah, they didn't get there by democratic means. They got there through terrorism. They blew up the King David Hotel, among other British Palestinian mandate governmental concerns. But that's where the British government was housed, in the King David Hotel. So the democratic idea that they've got there democratically, you know, right off the bat, it's a no-go. It's a fallacy. It never happened. You know, I can think of other things that never happened, but let's just stick to the things that we can dissect, that haven't been dissected so many million times, if you can think of a figure of how many million. So if there was a democracy, if they were this democracy, why are all the Palestinians refugees? Is that something that we need to know? Or is that not something we need to know? Does the world need to be allowed to have an opinion that all, I think it's 5.5 million Palestinians are all refugees? Do the Palestinians get a say about this? When do they not become refugees? Because they've been refugees since 1946, 47, 46, 47. like that's the part that baffles me. It's like the multiculturalism. When are we multicultural enough? You know, I'm not posing any answers because I know the answer I'd like, and you know, probably my site could get shut down if I didn't try and put it in the way that I'm trying to put it, which is from an intellectual. It's easy for me to say, an intellectual standpoint